This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world, and all you Congress members, Senate members, and Assembly members out there. You're on the spot, and you're not getting off it. John Bailey here with Jim Benerofe, the anchor for, the Dean of the School of Journalism of the City of White Plains, and Peter Katz, who is the anchor for all seasons, back in the saddle again. All right, and Jim has the headlines.
Here are the headlines for the week of June 23rd, 2017. White Plains Transit District Strategic Plan gets underway. City issues requests for developers' vision for 4 city-owned parcels at the railroad station. County legislators approve $9.5 million to renovate Playland Pool, preventing its demolition. County new debt for standard amusements Playland operation soars to $40 million from zero under county executive's first plan. Protesters emerge at county board meeting urging no privatizing of Westchester County Airport. Westchester County stalls on Uber decision. Uber threatens to pull out of Westchester. State legislator delays extension of state-county sales taxes, tying it to mayoral control of New York City schools issue. White Plains teachers approve new contract with school district by 85%. Primary race for mayor, Common Council prepares in earnest. City shifts July Common Council meeting from July 3rd to Wednesday, July 5th. City prepares for fireworks display Friday, June 30th, 6 to 10 p.m. Peter Katz will have a new edition of Trump the President. Gabe Pressman dies at 93. New York News legend. Peter Katz will have reminiscences.
Thank you, Jim. And now to the roll of newsreel March of Time for June 23rd. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the school district development opportunity, a request for an expression of interest in the 4 parcels, and the expressions of interest are due with complex requirements in early August. Dates on the left. Now, let's take a look at this plan. It involves these 4 parcels: the firehouse area just to the east of the railroad tracks, the parking garage down at the train station, the station lot where pick up and drop off, and the Bronx Street lot right next to the Bank Street Commons. Now, a little closer look at each of these parcels. Next slide, please. The first one is, of course, the parking lot right next to Bank Street Commons. The next one, next slide, please, is the Hamilton Avenue pickoff and drop-off area. The next is a redo of the parking garage area with perhaps housing of up to perhaps maybe 28 stories. And the final parcel is the firehouse, and the city's vision, which you can read on the website, is to build a new firehouse there and perhaps something else. And they have about a month to come up with a detailed development concept plan, whatever developers want to take this on, identifying how the conceptual development plan will advance the objectives set forth in the request for expressions of interest and the Transit District Strategic Plan. And this came out last week. And what do you think of this, James?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what kind of proposals they get. I don't think that the proposals can be particularly involved or complicated. I think they have to be pretty straightforward. I don't think you're dealing there with any super large parcels, and they have to...
Unless the city decides to do all four together as a single unit. They could go either way if they want.
Am I wrong, or there's a street in between?
No,
well,
no street.
No, basically, the city controlling the existing transit setup down there, and controlling these four parcels could basically do whatever it wants in terms of making it one parcel, making it separate parcels, combining parcels 1 and 2, combining 3 and 4, however they want to do it.
Am I wrong?
But I think basically what they're looking for is for a developer who is going to be cooperative and who is going to design it the way the city would like to see it designed.
Well, am I wrong? In one of the transit meetings, didn't they talk about these four parcels? Or maybe not all of them, but certainly the pickup and drop-off area they talked about. And they had...
Yes, they did.
Indeed, you're correct. They did, and they also left you, or left me anyway, with the impression that this is something which could be phased in over time. In other words, let's do parcel 1 now and see what happens there. And then if that looks good, then maybe we'll come back in a year or two and move on to the other parcels.
Well, the actual proposal, which I have read, does not really indicate how long they want this, how short a time they want this done in.
That's correct.
And it also throws a lot of stuff in there, like open spaces, recirculating the traffic, building a new entrance up to the tracks, particularly down by the Bank Street Commons lot. And
the Bank Street Commons lot, I thought that was on the other side of Hamilton Avenue.
It is.
So there is a street that goes in between.
Yes, that's Main Street.
Yes, there is.
Yes, but not in the actual parcel.
But in terms of offering these things or signing on or approving a development, they can do whatever they want. I mean, it's not that much of an effort to design perhaps a sky bridge over Hamilton Avenue.
Wow.
So in effect, you have combined your parcels. So what we don't know, and what we really were sort of led by the nose on during all of these meetings,
yes, despite
that they
the
held,
fact that this was such a complex process,
was is there at City Hall a vision and a plan that we're not being told about?
Yeah, sort of like the Congressional Health Plan.
Very often that happens.
Yes,
we saw that happen on Capitol Hill.
That's the senatorial.
With 1/6 of the nation's economy being replaned in secret at the
Hidden
moment.
deep within the bowels of the planning department.
Also, in the past, if you look at, and I'm not necessarily coming down on White Plains for this, because all cities do this. Yes. Where planning commissioners or mayors or others in power have a vision and a plan and an idea that they want to promote, and they will massage processes so that their plan is the one that rises to the surface.
Now, what is not put out for suggestion is what you're going to do with the Westchester County-owned portion on the other side of the railroad, which is an ugly parking lot.
Wasn't it our understanding that would be part of this whole year-long planning process and study process?
But the city is now taking care of what they see as what they control.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about the parking lot that's in front of the county center?
That's correct.
Yes,
and also
but
the
also
parking lot
also
beyond
behind,
it, which
and
is
for that
public.
matter, the building itself.
Yeah.
And there, there's some who say, despite its historic character and wonderful old architecture, it really has outlived its usefulness as a state-of-the-art facility.
Or
Now
you
they've
could-
put a lot of money into it, upgrading it, and they are starting to do more things there.
Yes, but where's the vision here? You could build a huge convention center on top of that.
Right.
And really attract and be
Well,
competitive
they have.
in New York City.
I will tell you,
Yeah.
my understanding is that a lot of that land is
It's difficult to work on because of the high water
it's swampy.
table. Swampy. You got a lot underground streams everywhere you look in downtown. But if you look underground,
Well, that's another
but
thing.
That's part of a thing that the development has to deal with. So,
But nowhere in the stuff that has come out about the transit district plan does it say, well, there's water here, there's water there, this is limited, we really have a tremendous... We haven't seen any of those geographic details.
the other
They
thing
could build buildings on stilts and let the water
you
be actually
could.
there.
One thing that we don't know, and we'll have to wait until these expressions come back, if there are expressions
that are going to be
come back.
dashed off by architects in the next 2 months.
What is the nature, if they have had talks with developers already?
That's true. We may already have had those, quote, confidential talks.
We don't know.
Right. Next, we go to the county. County legislators approved $9.5 million to renovate Playland Pool. This was announced by Catherine Parker, the legislator, in a press release this week. Her press release beat Jim Mazzano's press release by 4 days.
Yeah, but she had told you that, and you
that's
reported
right.
it a couple of weeks ago.
About three weeks ago when Playland opened.
So once
in March.
again, Bailey was ahead with a story.
Simply because I was the only one there that covered it.
That's why they call you Scoop Bailey, isn't it?
I wish.
Yeah.
Right. I wish. But the problem with this whole deal is it's going to cost $40 million now of taxpayer dollars from Westchester County in debt.
When you say whole deal, you mean Playland
Yes.
itself,
Yes.
not just the pool.
Now, when this first came out, guess what? It wasn't going to cost the county anything. We were going to have our debt service for Playland paid for by whoever took it over. That was and they turned that down because they didn't like sustainable Playland.
Well, we still have to see sustainable Playland saying, we're going to go ahead, here's the money, and we're going to start work over there.
Standard amusements, you mean.
I mean, standard amusements.
Right. But, and you haven't seen a dime from them yet. Yeah. And this has been, what, 4 or 5 years?
Anyway, the teachers here in White Plains are going to see not only a dime, but what we call a pretty penny.
That's right. The contract was approved.
Oh, I thought you sold your house, and that's why you brought in that sign.
No, I can't sell my house. No one can really sell their house and get what you want for it. But anyway, the teachers did approve the plan. If we could have the teacher's slide, please. And what they did was they approved it by a whopping margin, 411 to 60. And the salary effects for teachers on staff are very good. The triple F for emphasis.
Yeah, well, they moved people up on these step raises, so you actually get, it's as if you put in extra time that you haven't really put in. And when all is said and done, it amounts to a 5% increase in pay, which is a pretty good increase in pay these days.
For the people that are on staff now.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, you've been getting, what, a 1% annual raise? If any?
Bailey,
what have you been getting? 1%?
What are we getting here?
Well, let's see. I get $20 a week, and that's good.
Okay.
All right. And next, we go to what Dr. Smith commented after the contract was approved. He said this was made possible by a mutual acknowledgement from the beginning that each party had goals with regard to the outcome of the process that were important to them. The district had concerns about maintaining a sustainable rate of growth in the cost of teacher compensation that was proportional to the limited capacity of the district to generate new revenue under the tax cap. the Teachers Association wanted to see a highly competitive increase in their compensation.
That's a long statement from someone who's leaving the school system.
Yes, but it's really quite clear. And he got this done in 2 months, an all-time record for negotiation. Even that the negotiator, who was a celebrity mediator, Keel, was it? Theodore Keel. There you go.
Oh, you're
Yes,
dating
Theodore
yourself by
Keel.
mentioning
this
Theodore
This
Keel.
guy, every district should call him in because he
Keel.
knows how to get people together.
On go.
Theodore Keel, right. And he was always called in when everybody was at an impasse. And next slide, please. The health insurance portion goes up for the teachers the teachers have to pay, and this sort of takes away for some of their raises.
Yep. Well, it does, but it's still not
the
money
raise
out of their.
pays for it,
There's no
right.
money out of their
Yeah.
pocket for this.
So the whole details in this contract on the WPCNR.com website, but congratulations for the school district. Once again, White Plains had labor peace through 2019. And now, protesters at the county board meeting urged no privatizing of the Westchester County Airport. Peter.
Well,
What do you think about
basically, the plan that Astorino would like to see go forward is to turn the operation, to lease out the airport to an operator. There already is a private company operating it, but they do so at the behest of the county. This, in essence, would turn the whole thing over to a private operator. And there's been some opposition to it, not only on the board, but among the general public. And that really goes to the politics that we see in the nation these days, where the Republicans, being in control, want to privatize a lot, including the entire air traffic control system. If they had their way, they would privatize the post office. They have been trying to do that incrementally in bits and pieces for years. The objective in privatizing the post office would be to allow a major operator, say a Federal Express or United Parcel Service, to cherry pick the profitable mail delivery routes and leave the rest of the unprofitable stuff in the rural areas of the country to the quasi-government corporation to pay for.
But if they
to
don't
lose money on.
if they don't privatize it, though, then the county is going to have a big hole.
Basically, from your standpoint, as being a user of the airport, if they don't privatize it, it doesn't matter. It makes no difference. You won't notice the difference.
It's a budget fix.
That's correct. There is a like $14 million shortfall that they're hoping to get a $14 million upfront payment from a would-be airport operator for it to fill in the hole in the budget.
Right, and Westchester County is still stalling on the Uber decision.
Well, whether to allow Uber to operate fully in competition with the various car services and medallion taxi cab companies here in Westchester.
Right, and just yesterday, the state legislature in New York adjourned without extending state-county sales taxes, tying it to mayoral control of the New York City schools issue. However, the idea is that the sales tax remains in effect through the end of the year, so there's plenty of time for them to pass this.
Well, you know, when they do it, they always have a sunset provision because doing that really allows them to remain with some political leverage over local governments, which are desperate to have the state approve their sales tax ongoing after year after year after year, whenever the sales tax legislation needs to be renewed.
Now, Jim, the primary race for mayor and the Common Council prepares in earnest. What do you think so far? It's been real quiet.
It has been real quiet. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. There are a fair number of signs up for Lacuna, and there are no signs up for Roach. At least that I haven't seen any.
Well, I don't think he expects a problem.
he may be so strong that he doesn't feel that he needs to put signs up early. Sometimes politicians are very wise when they plan their campaigns so as not to peak too early. Because if you peak too early, sometimes people can get tired of you by the time the election rolls around.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see also what happens with the council candidates.
Yes. And we still haven't seen a slate announced by the Republican City Committee,
Still
have we?
none. I mean, they may not even contest the mayoral slot.
Hey.
But it's a little late. It's a little late. They should come out with something by now. Someone or some people. Now, right now, though, without further ado, it's time to monitor the goings-on in Washington with Trump the President, Peter Katz back, replacing the newsreader of last week.
Yeah, the big story this week in Washington, of course, is the Senate's version of health care. It's 142 pages. You can read it online. I urge you to do so. Basically, even though President Trump said he wanted to see a Senate version which is not as mean, as he put it, as the House version of repeal and replace Obamacare was, what the Senate has come up with is much, much meaner and really boils down to taking from the poor, taking from the sick, and giving to millionaires and billionaires and the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry and the medical device maker industry. It amounts to a shift of approximately $750 to $1 trillion from the poor and the sick to the rich and the medical industry. It basically does away with most, if not all, of Medicaid. This is something which House Speaker Ryan says that he was hoping to do ever since he was in college, which is to remove these so-called entitlements.
Let them die.
The irony of this whole thing is that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had this drafted behind closed doors, in secret, largely with input from Senate staffers and lobbyists for the healthcare industry. And Mitch McConnell, in proposing this bill, trying to railroad it through, they hope to vote on it next Thursday or Friday, which devastates Medicaid as its prime action, is being pushed by McConnell, who, it turns out, according to the Washington Post this morning, had polio as a child, and the health care which helped him deal with his polio and kept him alive was paid for by the government. Talk about hypocrisy. Ending weeks of speculation, President Trump said that he has not recorded his conversations with James Comey, the FBI director he fired. Trump tweeted that fired FBI Director Comey had better hope that there were no tapes of their conversations. Keep in mind that Comey is or will be a witness for Special Counsel Robert Mueller and testified under oath for Congress in its investigations of the Trump-Russia ties. Now, some, such as conservative talk show host and attorney Greta Van Susteren, Fox viewers will remember her, suggest that what Trump tweeted about having tapes was a lie and was threatening to Comey, and therefore, according to Greta, Trump was tampering with a witness, and that is a crime. After 42 years, the Yellowstone grizzly bear is being removed from the endangered species list. Trump's Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke announced the decision yesterday. The rule will be published in the Federal Register and take effect in 30 days. Conservation groups threatened to sue in court to have the rule overturned. Developers have been pushing for years to build in Yellowstone and other national parks and drill for oil and mine for minerals. And the regulations protecting wildlife have blocked or interfered with their efforts. Questions are being asked why Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner is being allowed to keep his security clearance after lying on his application for that clearance by not disclosing his contacts with the Russians as required.
This is the president's son.
The State Department has opened an investigation into Hillary Clinton's handling of classified information and her emails, as has the Senate Judiciary Committee, according to Senator Grassley. Now, now a year after the FBI found that there was nothing to
maybe they
deal
missed
with.
something. Think they maybe missed something.
President Trump leaking classified information to the Russians, and is keeping a foreign agent on his staff, and not lifting Kushner's security clearance.
He's giving a pass. He's getting a pass.
He's getting a pass.
He's getting a pass, man. He's always gotten passed.
You bet.
Right. He's always gotten a pass. Right. He always had a study hall pass. Right.
Anyway, do go online and read the Senate bill on health care for
really
yourself.
Something. And you see, it was a quiet week.
Yeah.
It was a quiet week.
This morning, we note I personally note with some sadness the passing of Gabe Pressman at age 93. Gabe Pressman was the consummate New York reporter, starting in the early 50s at NBC, which was WNBT television, and WRCA, and finally WNBC on Channel 4 here in New York, and on radio. He spent some time at Channel 5 here in New York. I remember Gabe Pressman. I was covering stories on the street for Channel 7 at the time. He was out on the street covering things. In particular, I remember that Gabe Pressman would dominate the news you saw, the coverage of a particular story, because of his technique, which was to allow all the other reporters to ask their questions. Then when things quieted down, he took over. He'd go after the subject at a news conference with question 1, 2, 3, 4. And so when it played on the air, you'd have Gabe Pressman dominating the subject of the news conference. Also, very, very quickly, we were covering a story at the Overseas Press Club in Manhattan. A lot of crews there. When the thing was over, Pressman and I were the last out. He had a black raincoat. I had an identical black raincoat. He mistakenly took my black raincoat. I was left with his black raincoat. Problem is, my black raincoat had been urinated on by our cat. Yes. Despite numerous cleanings, whenever it got wet, it smelled of cat urine.
Right.
So Gabe Pressman had a big surprise the first time he went out in the rain wearing my raincoat.
Right. And right now, we want to remind you that fireworks are going to be going off in White Plains on June the 30th. These are some of the shots of the fireworks that I saw in Miami Beach last week. And although it's not going to be over Silver Lake, it's going to be at White Plains High School, it's always something to look forward to. June 30th, 6 to 10 at White Plains High School. John Bailey, Peter Katz, Jim Benerofe. Good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.